Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love him. I can't get enough of him.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bull artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Headshot, bang.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're bucking now, baby. We're bopping.
It's great to be back with you. Well, hey, if this song passes the muster of Raging Al Iaquinta, even though it's called Boston Garden Rap, then we're okay with it. Good to be back in your collective lives Monday, August 7, 2023, episode 427 of the Anik and Florian podcast. Raging Al Iaquinta, filling in off the top of the show for Kenny Florian. Ray Longo's on hand. And I got to say, it was an absolute lock that Raging Al was going to show up right on the screws, noon Eastern time, 11:58. This guy's in the back of the room. Of course, Ray, we can count on you now 420 episodes in to be on time. But the realtor of the year, right? You know he's going to be there right at noon. It's good to see you boys.
I tell you, after this weekend, I'm a little shocked he was on time, but I'm very happy to see him. So this is big. This is bigger than you think, John.
It's going to take a little more than a weekend in Nashville to keep me from running off time.
We better not have Al too long because I actually think his voice might rival yours, Raymond, in terms of how listenable it is. But it's great to have, of course, the longtime UFC veteran and proud Team Sarah Longo member, Al Iaquinta, with us on the Anik and Florian podcast. Thanks to everybody who was there in Nashville, Tennessee, and certainly came up to these two gentlemen and myself. It's always a highlight to see you guys on the road. And Al, I guess I'll start with you. You know, this week was particularly unique because of this Dennis Bazooka circumstance. And he's a friend of the Anik and Florian podcast. He's been on the show several times. You know, I think he and our producer, Cody Merrill, might have actually French kissed at this point in time. You know, he's part of our family, right? And this was such a long time coming that I think we all sort of felt the emotions of this week. And then it all happened so quickly. So what was your week like? And you weren't initially scheduled to be in Tennessee with Pumi, were you?
No. This was last kind of minute. You want to take a trip to Nashville and watch me beat someone up? And I said, of course, let's go, let's do it. Crazy circumstances. I mean, 4 days notice. Guy flies out the next day, brings the whole crew. You know, we had a solid team. Everybody's behind Dennis. We know how hard he's worked to get here. Long time coming. 4 days notice. Cuts a tremendous amount of weight. Goes in there against a guy on a full training camp that really looked the best I've ever seen him look. Woodson did. He definitely surprised me with a lot of stuff that he did in there. And you know, credit to Dennis for really pushing through a hard 3-round fight against a tough, awkward opponent stylistically. You know, coming in, just you got those UFC jitters that everyone talks about. Right off the bat, 4 days notice, goes in there and fights super hard. So definitely proud of that guy.
Yeah, I think anybody who's been a supporter of his was very proud with the effort. And I think anyone who's been a supporter of Ray knew that he was going to go hard, even if he had a weight cut that had him staring death in the face. And a lot of people were shook by this weight cut. I think Matt Frivola may be chief among them. He said it's the worst weight cut he's ever seen. But obviously Dennis, you know, got as close as he could. And I kind of feel like in any other state with a commissioner who understood maybe what was going on, he might have given him the 3 ounces, but that's neither here nor there, Ray. How did you handle that Friday that seemed to be a traumatic life experience for Matt the Steamroller Frivola?
I mean,
just being honest here.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Listen, I was with Weidman when he dropped 30 pounds in 10 days. So I'm no stranger to, you know, seeing a guy laying on the floor. And, you know, that day I was basically crying for Weidman. And I honestly, at that time, I was saying, take the fine. They'll understand, which maybe in hindsight now was even wrong. But back then it was just brutal to watch. I mean, he had 3 pounds to go, jumped in the sauna for 15 minutes, didn't drop an ounce. I mean, it was bad. So I understand what those guys went through. I wasn't there to witness it, but you know, just the coincidence of the whole thing. Pumi Nakuda fighting the night before, and we weren't going down because that was a little suspect. If you know who's going to be there, I think McMahon is supposed to be there. You know, this was going to be a good shot for Pumi. Then within a week, Dennis gets the call, and everybody just up and leaves because we've been talking about this, and Dennis has been talking about this for about 25 years now. So, I mean, it's just the timing, probably couldn't have been worse, but this is what he wanted. That's his dream, to get in the UFC. And, like Al said, man, everybody stuck together, and we just went down there to support him because he's a staple in the gym, and he helps these guys up when they were fighting. And it was just a good thing. And before I go in any further too, hats off to Sean Woodson and his team. Seemed like a bunch of great guys. I mean, so I wish the guy the best. I mean, they were just absolute gentlemen, and I think they appreciated that Dennis stepped up to the plate. And that's all you could ask for in those situations. And those guys were absolutely fantastic, and just wish the whole team the best going forward. Look, a bunch of young guys, and wish them the best going forward.
And I'm going to give you plenty of time to unpack all of this. And if you are wondering, Kenny Florian is driving from New England to Charlotte, North Carolina right now. So we'll recap this UFC fight night with him later in the week and get predictions on Vicente Luque and Rafael Dos Anjos, and Brian Petrie and Jason Anik, by the way, coming up in about a half an hour. They were both in the building in Nashville, Tennessee. But Dennis Buzukja was in shape, right? And I felt the need to come to his defense, not because I like you guys or Ray's on our show every week, but because this athlete had an idea that maybe some short notice fight might materialize, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have muscle mass, right? So, Al, how much do you think the circumstances affected Dennis, if at all, on Saturday night? I mean, his heart obviously was there. He had big moments in the fight. I think, to your point, he just fought a Sean Woodson that obviously has been putting in the developmental time and mixed it up, and just was able to outlast him over a hard 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, to say that the whole situation didn't affect him definitely would be wrong. I mean, I could guarantee you he was feeling really that adrenaline dump in the beginning, which you're probably going to have in your UFC debut no matter what.
Either way, yes.
Yeah. And then, he was putting together some nice combos, definitely reacting to some stuff right off the bat. Woodson hit him with a couple of low kicks that changes things right away. A couple well-placed kicks will affect your movement, affect maybe even letting things go, because you're kind of fearing another one of those kicks coming, landing in the right spot. That he battled through a lot of adversity this week. So I think that going forward has to be in his back pocket. And, he gets his next opponent, gets a training camp. He's in the UFC now, and now he knows what to expect. Whatever the next fight is, he'll have this experience in that back pocket to pull out and say, listen, I got through 4 days, got my weight down about as close as you can get. Yep. And, was on, death's door, just now having to rehydrate, get back in the fight. It was like, what a crazy circumstance to go through, but that's what it takes. And now he got through it, and the next one will be, it will pose problems. Just in the UFC, that's what it's going to be. Every opponent's going to pose a different problem, a different, a different skill set. But now that is behind him. Now he'll make the weight. He'll have the time to get his weight down, to prepare, peak at the right time. I mean, he wasn't even close to peaking. He was, who the heck knows? But he was in shape. He was training hard. He was going into the fight the day before he got the call. He was being put through a hard Shark Tank grappling session. So it definitely, he was going in confident, but definitely had a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, his second UFC appearance hopefully is in November at Madison Square Garden. And you're right. I mean, it'll have a different challenge, but it will not be a 6'3", 145-pound boxer who wants to wrestle all night, So, so there's so much that we could get into. We had Al Iaquinta booked on this show before Dennis Buzukja was even set to compete. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes sort of talking to Al about Aljamain Sterling and everything that you have going on in your life. And I guess I just want to start with this Aljamain Sterling title defense. And certainly you don't need me to tell you anything about his character and why you weren't surprised that he would go support Dennis and Pumi as he did 2 weeks before a title defense. But the challenge of this title defense is not lost on me for Aljo. And I don't just speak of the opponent, Sean O'Malley. I speak to the fact that he fought Henry Cejudo, in early June over 25 hard minutes. So as one of his chief cornermen, Al, how have you digested all the circumstances surrounding this O'Malley fight? What are your thoughts now, 12 days out?
Oh, I mean, Aljo's looking great. He's looking great. And I think that was a big reason. He probably would have went either way, but I think that the fact he's really feeling good, he's put in the work. Right after that last fight, they kind of threw him right into this one. He was unsure where, how he would feel at this point. And I think we were all just like, Aljo, you a couple weeks from now, you're going to be like, wow, I'm ready to go, So, and that's exactly what happened. He took those 2 weeks off. He came back, and now he's in shape. He's looking like an absolute monster. Best he's looked in the gym. So going into this one, super confident. I think stylistically, it's a great fight for him. I know for a fact that O'Malley's never fought anyone near as good as Aljo, as tricky as Aljo, as cerebral in the cage as Aljo, and as unorthodox. He's never seen the striking. He's never seen the movement that Aljo in every facet of the game. He's never, and then you get to his bread and butter, the grappling. God forbid this guy gets a hold of him. It's not going to look good for
And
O'Malley.
So Ray, where are you guys by the time Corey Sandhagen fights Rob Font after you guys corner Dennis?
Oh, where are we?
Yeah, you back at the hotel?
Yeah, we're at they threw us right out. So Aljo had tickets. We got thrown out, so we watched the fight at the bar. But John, let me add one thing. These guys have traveled around the world together. They really are like brothers. Dennis has been a big help with everybody. Aljo really is a giver, man. He loves his teammates, and I think psychologically making that trip and being there for a guy he loves, and that he knew that this was a huge opportunity, I just think shows you who really Aljo is. Even though he's fighting in 2 weeks, he selflessly went to Nashville to support his buddy, and I think psychologically it's a big plus for Aljo. It might not seem it to the outside world, but I always said, look, if I had to lead the team to anybody, Aljo's really the guy that loves this stuff. And he gives back to all of the people around him. So it was just good. It was just a good energy having everybody there. And it just, the way it happened, like just one day, boom, everybody's on a plane the next day, and we're all together and we're supporting Pumi and Dennis now. And, hats off to Pumi too. Let's not forget him. He got a 3rd round finish. Yeah. I thought he looked fantastic. And Dennis went in there and I think he proved, he's got the heart, he's got the determination. He was up against some odds. Again, Woodson, like Al said, fought a great fight, and he is a great fighter. So that wasn't unexpected. And that was it, But where we were, we got driven back right after Bazooka's fight. So we ended up at the bar watching the Font Sandhagen fight.
No, Sean Woodson is 6 or 7 fights into his UFC career. He's lost 1 time, and I thought he mixed things up well, and I thought Dennis had his moments. I thought you guys coached him well, and I can understand the psychological value of you guys now having done this trip, and now that you guys are all back without travel issues, we can sort of have this conversation. I feel like Israel Adesanya is the only champion I can think of with respect to the other belt holders that really would have done this close to the fight, right? Like if Dennis was fighting on this Luque dos Anjos fight card this weekend, with respect, there's no fucking way Aljo's going to Vegas when it's that close, right? There were enough days where you actually could do this, and I give you guys all the respect in the world. I want to talk to Al Iaquinta about a few things if I could. So in terms of your own career, and I have so much respect for it as I pull out my Raging Al Iaquinta fight card today, not just your performance against Khabib Nurmagomedov on short notice that historically will always be lauded, but when I look at your wins list, Kevin Lee twice, Ross Pearson, Joe Lozon, Jorge Masvidal, Diego Sanchez, a lot of big wins. But I want to take you back to, if I could, the Ultimate Fighter live finale, June 1st, 2012, when you fought Michael Chiesa. So James Vick, God love him. And every time Al comes on, I bring this his way. So if your memory's good, I apologize. But Vick is like going to the window. He's like, dude, Al can't walk. Like You guys had been there for 13 weeks. You were injured going into that Michael Chiesa fight. If it was 2023, Al, 11 years later, no way seemingly you're medically approved to fight to actually go in there. But what do you remember sort of about that night? And obviously James Vick having the intel to go load up on Chiesa not because he didn't think you were better than Mike, just because you were on one leg.
Yeah, nowadays, I don't think he's able to do that, right? He's not allowed to bet on the fights anymore.
Correct.
He had some serious inside information there. I was walking through the hotel and it was even just like getting to the training room was pretty difficult. Yeah, I hurt myself pretty bad in that semifinals fight. And then we had to do the medicals before.
Oh yeah.
And the doctor was like, touch your nose, do this, do that, and then he told me to squat. Ray was like, the doctor told me to squat, and Ray was like, oh no.
John, I start talking to the doctor. Oh, it looks good, Al. I start acting like I'm the doctor just to get him through because I know he can't squat. I mean, we flew the doctor down. Remember Dr. Sherry, rest in peace. What a beautiful person. But ultrasound, stem, whatever she could do, we were working that knee over and over again. But when that guy said squat, I go, we might be fucked right now. So I think I start talking to the doctor. I'm diverting his attention. Al maybe does a quarter of a squat. The guy goes, okay, next. And I go, holy crow, we made it through.
So your career, and I mentioned some of the big names and some of the big wins, and there were a lot of special moments, right? But knee injuries were part of the narrative in your career. And now here you are, this outstanding realtor. You can still scratch the competitive itch a little bit as you train and help these fellow athletes and coach, and your body seemingly is still able to do all of that. So are you able to lean into the positives now that you are clear of mind and clear of body and have this great secondary career that maybe you wouldn't have? Like you could have gone on to be like the number one contender or the champion and still not have set for life money, right? So like, are you able to lean into the positive now that seemingly you are in this great life place?
No, absolutely. Everything kind of like that first injury back then really put it all in perspective. A couple of the Dr. Davidson with the UFC, he said, if you get this surgery that I wanted to have, you'll probably never fight again. And I was like, wow. I was like, if this guy's saying that, and
right,
who knows, And I had to have the surgery because I was in so much pain that I wasn't going to fight without the surgery. So I might as well get the surgery and hope that it took, and it did. I always kind of struggled after that with the knee, kind of working around it and everything, but it definitely set me up to look elsewhere, get the real estate license. Now, 8 years later, open up my own brokerage, and I got agents working with me. So I definitely have thrived in the real estate avenue, and yeah, it kind of frees me up now that I'm open my own office, can spend some time with the fighters that helped me coming up and be able to travel and go to their fights and stuff like that. So yeah, it's all worked out. Hard work, pushing through it all, fighting. If you could fight in the UFC, I think you could do anything. And it's really just setting yourself up for after, because it ends quick. And then you're sitting there going, what the heck am I going to do next? So I was fortunate in that aspect.
Well, you seem to be very good speaking in front of a crowd. I see you on all these podiums with all these fancy microphones. Would you enjoy doing mixed martial arts commentary or not necessarily? Yeah,
I've done a little bit with the LFA. I do the Ring of Combat. I do the Ring of Combat. So I enjoy it. I enjoy doing it. But yeah, that's definitely something that I enjoy doing, and every opportunity that I get, I jump on for sure.
All right, and last thing, how much connective tissue is there between the real estate thing and random people in the fight game reaching out to you trying to sell a house? And if you can pump wherever people can get in touch with you, now would be a good time to do that as well.
Yeah, I've had people reach out from all over the country that have been looking to buy or sell, and I've got a great network of agents all across the country. So we make it happen. Yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, Twitter, Instagram, usually the best way to get a hold of me. And it's enjoyable to have somebody that's a fan of fighting reach out from,
I bet,
Georgia, Nebraska, California, and then to be able to talk to them about their real estate needs. Also we're always talking fighting, so it's a good little bridge, an icebreaker, and then to be able to help them out and impress them, and then they go tell their friends. It's a cool thing. It's awesome.
Yeah, and John, let me add one thing, John, too, is that, knowing Al since he's probably about 19 to 20, man, it's just a really, really great thing to see him succeed after fighting and how he matured. He was a fucking crazy kid who, now I'm hanging out with him, acting just as stupid as he is at fucking 65. So I think he's keeping me young. But just to watch him grow up, even when I called my wife and I told her Bazooka lost, and she loves Bazooka's mother, and she said Al's the smart one. He's the guy. He's the smart one. He set himself up, because she struggles with the pain these guys have to go through making the weight and having to jump in like a fight like that. So it's always good to get that outside look from somebody who doesn't really understand the fight game. But that's what she was saying on the phone. Is Al's the smart guy. He set himself up. Look, she's so happy for him, because she loves his mom and dad, his sister, and she didn't get to see him. Well, she's always been a fan, but she never knew what a Mad Hatter he was. We keep that. We got to keep that in the box because my wife's a straight shooter. You know what I mean? But but it's just great to see the guy succeed, and he's going to have a great career. The UFC, the fighting. Listen, when you got guys trying to punch you in the face and break your arm and put you to sleep, that's hard. That's really hard. Getting up and talking in front of people, even though they say public speaking is, that's the number one fear of everybody. Yeah, get a guy in front of you who wants to decapitate you. That's the number one fear. There is no other fear than that. So public speaking, getting your own business going, that's really tough. And I think the fighting he used as a great, springboard to get where he wants to go, that's what I want out of all of these guys, and I think they're all doing it and they're all going to do it. Sarah's so super successful with his schools. Al's super successful with his real estate. And, all of these guys after they're done fighting are going to be successful because that's the hard part, what they already did. So you build good, you build those attributes in the trenches, and then you parlay them over into something else. I think is absolutely awesome.
And you keep raging Al on the back burner until you fucking need him, and then you just unload on anybody.
I still think he's going to fight, John. I still think he's fighting.
I was in the gym the other day. Ray goes, "I'm sensing something good for you. I'm sensing something good. Like I'm going to get a big fight coming up." I go, "What do you mean? What's next? What is it?"
But I mean, the times are holding pads, and we would be looking good, and his knee he'd just take the gloves off and throw them on the floor. It was just super frustrating, So my heart always went out to him, but I always just wanted to support him and see him do the best he could do with what he had. And I think he did a great job. People will never understand that, And even with the Chiesa fight, look, Chiesa, one of my favorite people in the world. He's a great guy. That was no disrespect to him. You brought the story up with James Vick, and it brought back memories to what we had to do. And that time with the doctor was absolutely crazy. I literally, I don't want to say that. He was a little older of a guy, right? I think. And I just diverted his attention when Al went to do that squat. John, I don't even know if his knees bent. I go, wow, it looks great. I mean, it was bad. It was actually really bad, but he did a great job. And so good to see Chiesa go on and still, be in the UFC and still get to say hello to him and stuff. So it's just,
I'm not taking a shot at Chiesa, dude. Just relax. I'm not taking a fucking shot.
I want to make sure, because I like him and respect him that much, that the story's funny, and trust me, these stories go way beyond that. After that you never even hear about. So just play to that.
Al Iaquinta, very much appreciate your time this morning, sir. And I guess we'll see in Boston, Massachusetts. You may want to tell Aljamain Sterling, unless he loves these boos that seem to follow him everywhere, to just check the Yankees hat. Because as someone who spent 30 years in Massachusetts, you know how much love I got for Aljo, but I don't need to see the Yankees hat next week. So.
And John, let me say one other thing, too. I want to start a segment called The People That Make the People. I think we just built this platform. We've been doing it. You've been doing it. person by person, like build like brick by brick. But we got stopped so many times. So I want to give a shout out to some of the people. Claudio from Argentina, just super. He saw us all standing there. He's looking. He doesn't know what to make of it. Like he's looking at me. Then he sees Al. Then he puts it together. And he's a big fan of the show. These are people that always start off with, I love the Anik and Florian podcast. And I think we got to pay respect for him. And another guy, when we were getting on the plane, me and Al, this guy Ray's that works for Delta Airlines. Ray, super nice guys, like again, big fan of the show. And I think I want to start like going person by person until we get to 1 million people. That's what I would love to do because I love these guys. I mean, I love it. I love, I'm one of those guys that might be a little different. I think Al's more like me, but you could interrupt me while I'm eating. I just think, to get to a point where people even give a shit about you like that is super special. And if you can make somebody's day, that's what I'm all about, and I love it. So hats off to Claudio Reyes. And again, Tom from Twitter, I don't want to forget him. He hung out with us at the bar. He was at the fights. These are just super nice people, and thank you very much for supporting the show. And
Reyes was raving about the show. He said he watched it religiously, so that was cool to see, man. He came up to us in the airport. He was couldn't speak more highly of the show. So,
so I thought it was great because we had Al coming on. So I was like, "What's your name?" We'll give you a shout out on Monday. So
amazing.
I go out. Can you remember the names? I'm trying to write them down because
Ray, you did good. I would have never remembered Ray's.
I had to write it. I had to write it down because we were all, a little banged up getting on the plane.
Yeah,
so
I bet.
It was good.
Well, that's amazing. Well, Al Iaquinta, continued success, brother. We'll see you next week, my man. And thank you so much for breaking off a few minutes today, brother.
Always, John. Always. I'll see you out there.
There he is, raging Al Iaquinta with us on the Anik Florian podcast. What a good dude. First met him at the Ultimate Fighter House in 2012. Crazy, as I was brought in to host the Ultimate Fighter live all the way back then. And then they wrote me out of the show after one season, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And it's too bad that show isn't still live because that season is one that I thought was maybe the best in show history in many respects. All right, well, we have a lot more to get into, not just Dennis Bazookia. We're going to go 4 wide and continue with our Anik and Florian podcast family. Big man Brian Petrie and Jason Anik are with us. Both were in the building at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee this weekend. Good to see you, fellas.
Big gun. How'd you avoid me? How'd you avoid me this weekend?
Listen, I saw you.
Big gun.
I was by you when I was on the side where all the fighters walked out. And after Dennis lost that fight, my wife's like, go down there and get Ray. Go down there and get Ray. Because I was right there. Like, this fighter just lost. I don't want to ask for a picture after Dennis just lost. I want you to be with your fighter, so I didn't see it. And then, unfortunately, I went with my wife, so she was a trooper for all the fight stuff. But after the fights, you kind of had to do a nice dinner and all that stuff. How to be a good husband for a little bit. But, man, I wanted to see Ray so bad. I didn't see you at the weigh-ins. I was unfortunate.
Listen,
have you guys met in person?
Never.
No,
and I was hoping to this weekend.
Big hug. How about that big hug? I mean, that's a couple of great huggers, a couple of big bodies. That would have made Ray feel pretty good after that fight, I think.
I love it.
Well,
I love it. I wish
if he saw me walking after the fight, he was, I don't know if I even call it walking, but I was definitely limping my way out of the arena. So he hugs me, might have just taken me right off my feet.
I would have picked him up.
You guys look like you were midgets.
Yeah.
Next door.
So I want to get back to something Ray said, the people that make the people. So little disappointed Ken Flo couldn't be with all of us today to not celebrate, but just acknowledge that for the first time in the near 9-year history of the show, the Anik and Florian podcast was nominated by Fighters Only at the World MMA Awards in the category of Best MMA Programming. And I can't even get it out of my mouth, Ray, without getting chills because this has been the little engine that could for a lot of years, and largely our format has stayed the same, dating to our first episode in April of 2015. The Ray Longo Minute was a part of that very show. And, we haven't always focused on things that get you awards, right? And that get you ratings necessarily. We focus on content. And I think as such, we have a very loyal, dedicated audience. And a lot of those people, I think, happen to be people that matter in the MMA industry and that are in the mixed martial arts industry, such as this anonymous Fighters Only panel that acknowledged our show with something that, to me, just feels so very good. But you mentioned our listeners and our viewers, Ray, and I'm just glad that you acknowledge those people because this doesn't happen without their loyal support. And you're goddamn right. We'll fucking take that nomination every day of the week. It means a whole lot to every last one of us.
Well, John, you're hitting on some things I think are, indicative of even my life. Like, we enjoy doing the podcast. We do it, I believe, organically. I don't think we ever look for anything. Now, there's a little money coming in. It's absolutely super with all of that stuff. But it's almost like me coaching. Like people, I think you're the most underrated coach I never thought that. And just like the podcast, I always thought the podcast was great. So even like when you're saying like we were the little engine that, to me, we never were that. To me, we were always right where we wanted to be. I think we were having a great time. And I think we try to shoot from the hip as much as possible. You're in an awkward position because you're really on a different level with the organization than I am. But I think we keep things honest. And I think that goes to show everybody who you are because you're in a really awkward spot. And, I think.
Well, thank you, buddy. Well, thank you, buddy. Of course, we get a Longo blackout as he's paying me that compliment. But no, it really does mean a lot. And certainly we read all the YouTube comments. Cody reads every last one of them. And I know Big Gun leans into that as well. And we appreciate that back and forth. And certainly when we read comments and someone says, man, you got the lead voice of the UFC. How come you don't have any ratings or why aren't your numbers better? Right. Well, we focused on the content. And if those numbers, are what they are, then that's fine. I'm not going to book Khabib Nurmagomedov just to do a big rating, but we are very thankful to our DraftKings family and to all of you guys, Jason, of course, and your wife, Amanda, helping us out on the business side with many things to come. Best handicapper in the history of the show for sure, in Big Gun Brian Petrie. But to that end, let us serve our audience and not fluff ourselves. We're going to get Ray back, but I do want to dive into this show. Now, I did get a text from you, Big Gun, at one point during the proceedings about the crowd, and maybe it was a group text, so I don't know the exact nature of the crowd. Ray, thank you, by the way, for what you said. I really appreciate that, and congratulations on your nomination. We got Longo back now for Coach of the Year. Get out the vote for Ray Longo, by the way. He needs that hardware. And Ken Flo nominated for Analyst of the Year as well. But the award that we all want collectively, folks, is for Best MMA Program. And let's be honest. And I will be showing up at the World MMA Awards, no matter if it's the night before a pay-per-view, to show my respect to the Fighters Only family for acknowledging our show. But that's the award we want. So I don't care if you vote for Laura Sanko for Personality of the Year. We want to win Best MMA Programming, okay? So, but I just want to talk to these guys and you, Ray, a little bit. And Big Gun, I thought the Nashville crowd was really darn good most of the night, arriving, acknowledging the grappling. But I got a text from you that this was not a good crowd. And obviously they didn't handle moments late in the night particularly well. But what was your experience like being in the building?
Yeah, so I want to preface this by I am a snob. I am a huge MMA snob. So if I hear chatters that I don't agree with or it's ridiculous, I get a little But, they came early, which is great, and they were loud, but the night goes on, the booze goes on. You know what I mean? So then we started getting some really bad boos. I mean, they were booing during the Jacoby Kennedy fight, which ended in a knockout. Like, they were booing before the knockout. It's like, can you give these guys a minute here? What the fuck's going on? And then just in my section alone, I can't attest for the entire crowd because I met several national fans of the show and everything, and they were great. But in my crowd, or in my section, there were some very obnoxious people, guys that didn't show up till the Tatiana Suarez fight, and then they're booing. It's like, bro, you've been here for 2 minutes. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like,
and I got hands too. I got hands. I'll turn around.
Down these fucking steps, my guy. The guys in front of us really bothered. My wife was kind of. I was getting a little animated. You guys know who the guy who sings Over the Rainbow, the very enormous Hawaiian gentleman who sings Over the Rainbow? Do you guys know who that singer is? Yeah. So there's a guy in front of me who looked exactly like him, and he's yelling the most obnoxious stuff. His dad's next to him laughing at it. This guy's got no cardio. Being a bigger guy myself, I'm looking at him like, buddy, you're 800 pounds and you're yelling about cardio. What are we doing here? And he just wouldn't shut up all night. And my wife's like, relax. You can't get in a fight here. You took a picture of the guy behind you. Relax.
Right.
So I got a little worked up because, the main event obviously wasn't what we all expected. I thought Corey did great with considering what he went through. And those are the kind of nights you get in MMA. I'm never going to boo. I'm never going to boo these fighters. I'll boo a Steelers fan. I'll boo the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll boo some refs because that's a game. Yeah. This is a sport where guys are putting their body's livelihood on the line, and he's going in there with a messed up injury and then got injured in the fight. You're never going to hear me boo. So I didn't appreciate the boos. But other than that, like the people I met in Nashville were great. The city's great. But yeah, just a couple bad eggs.
Yeah. Hey, Ray, how much more time do you have?
I got as much as you want. I just hope I don't get interrupted as we're going through this because I thought I set everything up correctly. So
no, you did.
I'll lose my shit on here in a minute. But
Jay, go ahead.
No, I just want to get in. When I went over to see BP, and thankfully it wasn't the first time I'd seen him all weekend, but I went to see you and your wife, and so we're saying hello. Heidi Dean's with us. I always love my time with Heidi Dean. Shout out Heidi Dean. We're standing there, and I see this couple, recognize BP. Okay. And it might as well have been Jay-Z and not BP. Yeah. I mean, this lady's face, she's talking about the crowd. I'm talking, this lady's face lights up because he's down sort of, close to the cage. And I just see her walking, just so excited. She has no idea how nice he is. She probably can't believe how big you are, like everybody else. Yeah, right. But the fans came out for BP, did they not?
It was
crazy. You saw a lot of people asking for pictures, bro. So a lot of love for you amongst the wacky crowd.
I never thought I would be the guy taking pictures. Like when we be getting into the arena, we got there early, waiting in line to go get the tickets. And we took about 6. I took about 5 at the weigh-ins, took like 4 or 5 in the arena. I'm like, what is this? I look at my wife like, what life is this? I'm taking pictures with people. Yeah, this is the Anik Florian.
The Anik Florian podcast changing lives, of course. I mean, let's not bury the lead. But Brian, you have earned what has come your way. Go ahead.
I appreciate that.
100%.
All right. Well, I have a lot of fight stuff that I'd like to get into with you gentlemen. And Ray, I will get you out of here in about 15 minutes or so.
No, I'm here whenever.
But I want to just close the book on the Dennis Bazookia fight, if I could. And then we're going to get into Corey Sandhagen and the rest of this stuff. And Ken Flo's coming up in a few days, so just bear with us. But I didn't love what my conversation with Matt Frabola. I know you and Al and I talked about it, and I'm so glad that Dennis is out the other side. I'm glad he didn't shave his head. I think this is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But as far as the fight is concerned, huge leg kicks early from Sean Woodson, Ray, that you acknowledged in the corner, and that didn't seem to be the biggest factor as the fight went on. But to what degree were you guys surprised with the wrestling game of Sean Woodson?
Yeah, look, I was even surprised with the calf kicks that he got off early because I really thought it was going to be the other way around. I wanted Bazooka to chop his legs down. You know what I mean? So I thought that was good. And yeah, look, Woodson's he's been around long enough. He's a complete fighter. You know what I mean? So I think the fact, look, Dennis has decent stand-up. He's got really good stand-up, actually. So the fact that Woodson was trying to get that fight to the floor, I think speaks volume, like, what he was feeling in there also. So I wanted it. I didn't like when Bazooka had his back against the cage. I thought Woodson did a great job. He optically looked great when he was unloading against the cage. And I think, again, that's like, look, after the fight, I'm not even going to analyze the fight. If you were tired and you were just backing up to get a break, or even when he was going for the takedown, he wasn't going to win the fight like that. His shot was in the center of the ring. He's got good power in his hands. You see, even when at the end of the second round, when he got out of whatever submission, he ended up on top with the ground and pound. He was unloading. He's got killer instinct, So I thought he did a great job with everything. But yeah, Woodson's a complete fighter at this point, and I'm surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I thought he would stick a little more to the boxing than he did. Maybe that was a surprise. But all in all, when these guys are in there, you might feel something, right? Like I'm sure if Aljo's fighting O'Malley, and even though we know his strength is the wrestling, if he feels it's really easy, that's where he's going to go. He's going to go to the path of least resistance, which is what he should do. You know what I mean? And, we'll get into that with the Sandhagen fight too, which I thought, again, like Jason said, Sandhagen did what he had to do. You know what I mean? I don't like the shit when you're going to save a fight. It's not your opponent. You think you're doing the right thing. And then the next thing you know, you're the villain for shutting down a really tough guy. So I got a different way of looking at it, but
Yeah. Sorry for that market
it is what it
change
is. I
in
don't know.
Ray's audio. Jesus fucking Christmas. All of a sudden your audio just went up like a million octaves. No, it sounds actually better right now. But you provided the segue for us. Jason, I want to start with you on the main event because it was a pretty uneven main card. You started with a couple of decisions. I thought it was a great main card, all things considered. You have the back-to-back-to-back finishes by Diego Lopez, Dustin Jacoby, and Tatiana Suarez. But Jay, when you have a main event like this, circumstantially on a night that has this Jake Paul, Nate Diaz fight, I think it maybe compounds things. So aesthetically, not a great main event. Corey Sandhagen certainly wrestled the striker to great effect, but you were octagon side, Jay. So we'll start with you on the main event. Corey Sandhagen, 50 to 45 times 3.
Yeah, well, it's like when you see those 25-minute fights and you have a good, which frankly is like over 30 minutes with the breaks in between rounds, and you almost see where it's going to be. You know, after 7-8 minutes, you sort of see where you're going to be 20 minutes from there. And then the crowd starts depleting. And, you know, those boos, I'm with you, Peachy, about the boos, but that just is what it is. And John, I think you made a great point. Or someone made a point about how you're going to have in high level technical martial arts, you're going to have some fights that maybe Cody and I were talking, that are maybe a little boring, frankly. Doesn't mean it's not technical and I mean, I was really admiring, I'm rooting hard for Bob Font trying to get up there and liking a lot of sort of his tactics and looking like, frankly, his cardio is there actually to try and get up there. But to me, it just kind of is what it is. I enjoyed the Ankalaev-Blachowicz main event far more than many that resulted in a draw. I'm glad we've heard Ankalaev coming back now. But so for me, it just kind of is what it is. But Cody and I were talking earlier, technical fights can be boring. And that's just sort of how it wasn't the most interesting 30 minutes of my life.
Brian, what do you got on the main event, kid?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't fight of the year. I mean, but I did like, for as a capper, I go, okay, so when Corey fights now, he got a little bit of wrestling in him, right? You got a little of that wrestling now. That was the big thing. I mean, Aljo took him down, took his back, submitted him very quick. This was supposed to be Umar in there, and then Corey did this basically one arm, right? That's what he did. There's no fake injury there. I've seen the videos.
Yes.
He's getting surgery, all that. And Rob Font didn't have much off his back. He tried a couple guillotines and stuff, but he couldn't get up off his back. So Corey's obviously pretty heavy on top. Rob Font's a complete fighter. So I'm taking all the positives away from Corey. The only negative I would say is if Cheeto goes out there and knocks out Pedro Munoz, Corey's probably not next. Cheeto will leapfrog him. Even though Corey has a win over that, they're going to go, hey, this guy right here, this guy he's excited. He bangs. Let's bring this guy in. And then, everyone made a big deal about Dana White leaving and all this stuff. So I think Corey fought a smart, good fight. And he showed a new wrinkle to his game, which I appreciate, what I mean, moving forward.
Ray, I think people make too much of Dana White leaving before
John,
the main event. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is why they're taking pictures with Petrie. For this is why the guy's dead on everything.
But what did he just leapfrog your guy Marab? He didn't even mention
Jay, your mic is so fucking grating. I'm sending you a mic right after the show.
Sorry, but he didn't talk about DeWallish Willie. That's all.
Yeah, no,
I'm just waiting for a window to get in here. There's a little delay.
Sandhagen to be penalized for that, unfortunately. And look, there's a lot to unpack. But like when you're backstage with the fighters, guys, and after the weigh-in, they take the fighters in the room to give them the pep talk. They don't take the coach. They don't want the coaches anywhere near that. You know why? Because when they're talking, the coach is going to go, "Fucking don't listen to that, man. Fight your fucking fight. We don't give a shit." There's a group of people that think Lenny Garcia versus the Korean Zombie was a great fight. It was a barroom brawl. Yeah, it was exciting. We all want to see those fights. But was it a technical fight? Absolutely not. So again, I think Cruz hits it out of the park on the broadcast. That's why you need different guys looking at things, because he brings up the technicality of what was going on. And, like Brian says, now, poor Corey goes in there thinking, I'm going to show a side of my game that no one's ever seen before, and I'm injured, and it's the way I want to go. And the guy's going to come out, and he's miserable now that everybody's bitching about it. So, I think the real people in the game understand what was going on. They have an appreciation for it. But, they are running a business. I will never argue with that, whether I agree with it or disagree. You want excitement, obviously. You want the optics of that. You want people getting knocked out. But sometimes it doesn't have to do what they do to get the W. And hats off to Corey Sandhagen. You could tell he's a super cerebral guy. He wants to improve all the time. I wouldn't penalize the guy for it. I'd compliment him for it.
Hopefully his elbow is not a torn triceps. That can be an annoying longer-term injury. But yeah, I mean, a clean fight for Corey Sandhagen, great corner, Christian Allen, Carrington Banks, Ryan Hall. They touch on all phases, and yeah, they're going to beat you at what you're not good at, and seemingly that's going to be the strategy going forward. And if that's off-putting for some of the fan base, then I think so be it. I don't know how he'll be penalized. Brian, did Dana do a post-fight press conference after this or no?
No, I haven't seen. The only thing Dana posted was about the Kid Rock. Kid Rock gave him some guns. That's all I saw.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know that Dana has necessarily addressed this. I'm not sure the extent to which Corey Sandhagen is going to be penalized. There are a lot of different layers to this main event to get into. I don't know that Rob Font was expectant that he was going to get wrestled to that degree. And even though I thought his defensive grappling was pretty good early, it was not particularly good late. Dominic Cruz is a fantastic grappling jiu-jitsu analyst. There is not a single thing. And he had me in Darce chokes all weekend. I am never going back to jiu-jitsu class, but I'm just telling you, there's nothing that could happen in that octagon that he does not recognize acutely and can't simplify and explain to the audience. So I wanted to shout out Dominic Cruz there. But Ray, Corey Sandhagen is an outstanding striker and would beat a lot of the guys in this division in a straight kickboxing match. But he's also maybe the foremost student of the game in this entire division. So I don't know that anybody should be all that surprised that he's going to present a more layered version as he gets to a more advanced stage.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I'm going to tell you something, too. Dominic Cruz said something I couldn't agree with more when he said, everybody's saying you do this, do that, do that. If it ain't in your wheelhouse, you ain't doing shit. That's why I always say what the fuck is a game plan? We all know what game plan should be. Can your guy do it? And some guys can't. So that, to me, the real game plan is when you can't do something and you make what you can work. That's a game plan, because then that takes special training. But yeah, you could talk all day long, go for the leg, do this, do that. It's the guys, you could see that's not where he was at. So Dominic, I think, a lot of times, even I disagree with some of the things, especially when he's ragging on this. But for the most part, man, I agree 100% with him. He's an intelligent guy. He does a great, job analyzing those positions and explaining it to the people. He was dead on with that. He can't do it. If he could do it, he would do it. I think it's that simple. You know what I mean? So hats off to him.
So Jason, Dominic, and I were able to watch the last 4 rounds of Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. And Jay, you had a front row seat for Dom going at one of the Jake Paul supporters in the room. That was fun.
Well, Dominic Cruz, I mean, no matter who you are, no matter how long he's known you, anything you utter out of your mouth, he will hold you to it. I've said it on my show before. So if you no matter what you say, if he doesn't agree with it, and he's tactful, but and this dude is yoked and drunk, and I'm just and Dom's just sitting there just picking this guy apart verbally to the point where the guy's like basically like, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm like he's pulling on his side, but Dom is just I've never met anyone quite like Dom. Yeah, but I like it. I like being challenged by Dom more than most things. He's the man.
Yeah, Jason, I'll disagree with one thing you said. Tactfully, not tactful at all. He's right in your face, that guy. He's going to say what he wants. I don't know how tact there is with that, but I mean, he's attacked me and Sarah together. I mean, the guy's awesome. He really is fun. He definitely cannot control himself. There's no way in the world.
No. So one thing that as a parent I really try to preach is tactfulness. And yeah, Jay, I think you left out just 2 words. He can be tactful for sure. He can lead the league in tactlessness as well. But I absolutely love the man. One of my best friends in the world. Brian Petrie, I'd like to begin with you on Tatiana Suarez over Jessica Andrade with a guillotine choke. It comes at 131. Of the second round, one of 5 performance bonus winners on the night. And for the first time in the history of the Anik and Florian podcast, both of our handicappers offered up 5-unit plays on Tatiana. Jay and I were talking about this in our hotel room, that all of these sharps were loading up on Suarez by finish. I have to think the books got absolutely killed. What were your thoughts on Suarez doing what most expected her to do in Nashville?
I loved it. I said this last podcast. I'll say it again because they're picking up a little steam. I know chicks, man. You know what I mean? 5-unit whack here. No, listen, I had her by submission too. It was plus 225. I got it early in the day. And I like what she did. I mean, Andrade kept her hips out. You're not getting a single. You're not getting a double on me. So guess what she does? She goes and ankle picks her and takes her to the ground and works her game on top. Didn't rush anything, kept her distance in the first round, didn't try to rush the finish, avoided those big bombs against a legend in Andrade, and then goes out there and uses one of those fancy chokes her boyfriend's teaching her, or that she's teaching him. Who knows? She's that good, and got her out of there. And I was blown away. Again, I've said it before, I'm not doing a hot take here, but without the injury, she'd be champion. And I'm looking for maybe one more fight from her, and then we're going to see her for the belt, I think, unless they rush her to the belt. But I think the belt's coming soon.
Ray, I thought it was a banner night, as I mentioned, on the sticks for Dominic Cruz, and he felt as though in our fighter meeting and in round one, Jessica Andrade's tactics were correct. The thought process going into a very challenging fight was correct. But Tatiana Suarez is a real problem, and perhaps I'm overstating it when I suggest she could be a 3-division champion, but she has a mean streak. She has an appetite for training, hardest worker in the room, freestyle wrestling base, and she wants everyone to know she's a much better striker than you think, too.
Yeah, well, first off, Petrie, 5-unit wax back in the day was code for 5 guys are getting killed. I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but 5-unit wax, that's what it means to me. I'm like, Petrie's going to the dark side. Is he telling or something? Suarez is a complete and utter beast. Complete beast. I even think the relationship she has with Pat is just in her that dominant. He's a savage also. This is a power couple from hell, these two. I mean, I don't think anything's stopping her. Look, I expected her to do exactly what she was going to do. She's driven, she's focused, she's got the skill. But I still think there's, some gaps in the stand-up, but, she could overcome that. But all in all, that's going to be a hard person to deter, to stop her to get from what she wants. And what a great performance. And Andrade has been stumbling a little bit lately. So was that with Tatiana's weight class? Were they all in their weight class? The original weight class?
So Tatiana Suarez.
Blanchfield's.
No, not Blanchfield's weight class. So Blanchfield's at 25 or these, and we call it Blanchfield's weight class. Alexa Grasso, we absolutely love you. You're beautiful, and you're a tremendous fighter. But 115 pounds straw weight. Tatiana Suarez has told us during our fighter meeting she ate steak Diane the week before the Montana De La Rosa fight. So she is a straw weight, right? And I will get into the bantamweight stuff actually as well. But the point is that she has a win over the current UFC flyweight champion, Alexa Grasso. Now, that fight happened at straw weight, but most people would argue that Tatiana Suarez would be favored right now to beat Alexa Grasso. Maybe she wouldn't be favored to beat Valentina Shevchenko. They have their rematch, do Grasso and Shevchenko September 16th in a different division. But Suarez eventually, most people believe, will ascend to a strawweight title fight, and perhaps in a fight or so. And she would then potentially be in a lot of favorable matchups at 25. And then when you look at 35, and Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington, she's given up a lot of size. But those matchups are good for her. All these matchups are good for her, And she's 11-0. She's not 28. I think she's 32, right? Because a lot of her prime has been taken up by injuries. But I don't know, Ray. I think she could realize potential titles in 3 divisions. Yeah, she's got. I think
she's just total star.
Definitely for 15 and 25, 35. I get jump, but she looks huge in there to me. That's why I wasn't sure, because I know Blanchfield Forge. I guess Andrade went up for that fight, but
right.
Yeah, some good stuff coming down the pipe for her. She looks like just her headspace is really in the right spot. I mean, I see, when I forget about technical, I see just utter confidence and determination. And I think she's been through some adversity in her life that this is, like we were saying, the adversity she's been through is even worse than the adversity we were talking about comparing fighting to public speaking. So she's a girl on a mission. I think she's got the right people around her, and she's a force to be reckoned with 100%.
Yeah, you're wise to acknowledge the people around her, the interim Bellator bantamweight champion, Patchy Mix, and sort of opposites attract, right? He lets everything out there in terms of his emotions and things, and she keeps everything pretty tight. But he's a shy kid. I got to meet him, and an absolute killer, and certainly one of the best 135ers in the world. All right, we'll see where Tatiana Suarez goes from here, but she is a real problem. Hey, Jason, I would like to start with you on Diego Lopez and Gavin Tucker, if I could. How about this Diego Lopez cat? So most of our listenership knows what he did against Movsar Evloev in his short notice UFC debut. But then he's fighting a Gavin Tucker who's game as hell, super motivated, coming back from devastating injury for the first time in several years. But Gavin Tucker at times has looked like a really elite fighter. And Diego Lopez, who couldn't even get to the UFC for some circumstances, chews him up and spits him out in like 90 seconds. So what'd you think about the affable, quickly becoming fan favorite Diego Lopez, Jason?
I mean, can't get enough of him. I met him in Vancouver and just gushed to his face about his last fight, which was a loss. I mean, that Evloev, a lot of guys perform very well and come out on the losing end, but that wasn't a split. And to me, that was as good as you can come out of a loss. And he is him. I agree. And he's got that star power. And there's certain guys where English might not be their first language, but it's not going to surprise me if that guy's talking great English on the mic soon too. Do you know what I mean? He has the star power, and that matters. Like we were talking about Tatiana a second ago, with Amanda Nunes exiting door right, here comes Tatiana Suarez. Whether they're in the same division or not, star power really matters in this. Diego has it. Tatiana has it. But I can't get enough of that kid. I'm so happy he's on the winning end, and I can't wait. He'll be in the ranking soon. I think he's a stud.
Hey, Ray Longo, Diego Lopez, longtime jiu-jitsu coach of Alexa Grasso and Irene Aldana. It's been a few different things that have sort of kept him out of the UFC. But when you see a guy like this, I can't help but wonder, like, man, where has this guy been? Like, give me the haircut. Give me the open-mindedness to learning and speaking the English language. Like, give me this whole Diego Lopez package. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, he came out. I thought I was at an NSYNC concert with that haircut. But you're never going to forget looking at that guy for sure, man. I mean, he's got it going on. Look, he could have had some fights. I haven't studied him. That, the UFC is very particular with, what they want. We kind of hit on a little bit. They want excitement. I think the guy's super exciting, but maybe he had a couple of that weren't. Maybe that was the reason he was out, but he ain't out. He's not out anymore, and he's in with a vengeance. And especially if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, you got to love what you saw out of him. I mean, I started rubbing Mo after that fight. The pain that he put that other guy in he had to snap that arm for sure. So yeah, looks like he's, the first time he got in with, I'm not even going to make an attempt at the guy's name, but he did great in that fight too against a really top game guy. What's his name, John? Mr. Pronunciation?
Movsar.
Yeah, whatever. So he died. I thought he was in that fight. So.
Hey, Big Gun, Hayden Iverson, my friend Hayden Iverson on Instagram at HeyJivePicks. I think he was suggesting it's like an emo haircut or something that we got with Diego Lopez. Is that what it is?
On my podcast, I call it the cutie boy haircut. It's just down here. He's just a little cutie boy with it. And I had a big swing and a miss because I took Gavin Tucker there. I saw Cody and people, but Diego Lopez might be him. And another thing that I'm super embarrassed about is two things. One is, as a handicapper, I don't ever, because I watch footage of him, I don't ever, sometimes my dumb brain go, oh, this guy's going to get better. I've seen him. I'm like, oh, I've seen him fight so-and-so and he lost. But he's getting better. I mean, what he did, when he trapped the arm in that triangle, I thought, Kenny's going to break it down better, but I thought Gavin was getting out, and he wasn't. That's a grip strength. That's a leg strength. That's patience. That's Diego knowing exactly what he's doing. And secondly, I'm the biggest Patrick Swayze fan in the world. I watched the movie Roadhouse 92 times. I'm going for my 100th. Diego Lopez looks exactly like Patrick Swayze if you give him a good look. And I'm like, why am I not picking this fucking guy? Yeah. So big swing and a miss for me. I apologize to the fans out there. Took a dog shot. It failed. Diego Lopez is somebody I'm not going to overlook anymore because, he looked fantastic in there.
And the Swayze similarities actually are undeniable. Hey, Ray, before I let you go,
yes,
we're going to talk to you next Monday, but you're actually going to be in Vegas for Dana White's Contender Series. Pompos is competing Tuesday, August 15th.
Yes.
Is that the word on the street?
Pompos Gregorio, yeah, we got to be great, and that is the word on the street is the correct word. We will be in Vegas for the Contender Series. Super excited for Pompos. Waited a long time also to get here, so I hope he steps up and does what he should do.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for giving me a full hour. We will talk to you next Monday live from Las Vegas. And, you're the man. Just seeing the whole Longo entourage in Nashville was a sight.
Seriously.
We had a great time this week. I got one thing with the Jake Paul Diaz fight because I don't understand it. I got no dog in this money, but I think I have. Tell me, guys, if I'm right on this. I got the marketing idea of a lifetime. We should all promote this because I'm not saying the guy can't box. I think he can box, but he's 20, what is he, 26? This kid, 25. Yeah. He's fighting guys 39, 38. Here's what we do. If Bo Nickel's listening, Bo Nickel, this is what I want you to do. You do an MMA fight. Let's get him a couple of world champion old boxers. Let's go Bo Nickel against like De La Hoya MMA fight. Let's do Bo Nickel against even better. Let's do Bernard Hopkins against Bo Nickel. So he's the younger guy. He's got 30 pounds on everybody. See how long those fights last. I want Petrie. Let's put this together. I go Bo Nickel again. Put him against anybody. What's going to happen in that fight? Imagine a young guy taking on guys in their late 30s, early 40s. That were former champion boxers. Give it to me, man. Let's do it. I say let's do it. Let's see how that looks. I don't understand what's going on in this YouTube world. I really don't. I'm never going to get it, but that's what I'd like to see. Get a young guy like that. How long will those fights go? With Canelo Alvarez, put him in with Bo Nickel. What happens in that fight?
Right. No.
I don't know why people are surprised what's going on. I'm right.
Dominic Cruz's thesis statement on this whole thing is that Jake Paul only fights. And it's good, Ray. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. Dominic Cruz's thesis statement on this whole thing is that Jake Paul only fights the already wounded and largely only competes as a betting favorite. I think the price on the Tommy Fury fight was close, right? But that's not lost on me either. I guess for me, wide-eyed realizing, and perhaps if we had a pay-per-view in Nashville, it might have been a little bit different, but we found ourselves not rushing to a TV, but certainly curious as Nate Diaz supporters to get to a TV to watch the final few rounds. And yet I see all these people and I'm picking their brains and I'm wondering, we got UFC Fight Night at Bridgestone Arena. We're here for the first time in 4 years right down the street, sort of wondering why Jake Paul is dominating the evening. But he's a massive combat sports superstar. When I would go pick up my kids at elementary school a couple of years ago, the name I hear on the playground is Jake Paul, not George St. Pierre, So he's an absolute star, Ray. I mean, and I applaud that.
I applaud that. And welcome to the world of the YouTube stars. I mean, that's it. But you got to remember, he had a great dance partner. Nate Diaz is super, super popular. You could see anywhere that guy goes, everyone stands up. So, hats off to those guys. I do. Look, so there's like reality and then, there's other things. But what they did and the money they generated is unbelievable. So hats off to everybody for that. But as far as looking at it beyond entertainment, I think it, to me, is a little odd. You know what I mean? And I applaud what they're doing, how he puts it together. But if you want to see the flip side of that, do my equation. Because I don't want it to come off as hating. I think entertainment-wise,
I like it.
Like marketing-wise, it's a stroke of genius. But you can't be 200 pounds calling up guys that were fighting at 55 or 70. I just don't get it. Mm-hmm. You want to put. That's why I say you get Bo Nickel's 185. Put him in with a 160-pound champion of boxing champ. And I love boxing, but that's not a fight. It's really not a fight. There would be a 1 in a million shot he loses that fight. And he's just not. There's none of those guys could stop the takedown or the submissions that's going to follow. So the fact that he is fighting the older guys and not even getting rid of them is very weird to me. So, again, but I don't want to, it's not hatred. I'm just making an observation. I got no, nothing invested in any of it, but,
Yeah. Well, we could go on and on about this. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. Like Dustin Jacoby is a light heavyweight, right? He is a decorated kickboxer.
Without a doubt.
Jacoby can't kick. how does he fare in a boxing match with Jake Paul? Well, then some people will say, yeah, but Jake cuts down or whatever. He's not really. So take Sean Strickland, for example, right? Like I want to see Matt Brown fight Jake Paul, but Dominic's like, no, you're picking these wounded animals. And I'm like, Matt Brown is too fucking tough and too mean. Matt Brown will knock out Jake Paul if you give him the opportunity. I don't know how. I don't know. I know he can't kick and fucking elbow. If you give Matt Brown the opportunity, he will knock Jake Paul out. I promise. Yeah. I promise you he will. How does Sean Strickland do? Like, how does Sean Strickland do? Sean Strickland is a primal MMA athlete with a very good jab. I know Sean kicks too, but Ray, how would Sean Strickland do against Jake Paul in a boxing setting?
I could tell you he would love to have the opportunity. I know that. So I would definitely pick Strickland. But this is the beauty of what's going on. We're all here talking about it. I think that's the beautiful about it. They've gotten to that. That's not an easy level to get to, where everybody, like you say, they're mentioning Paul's name on the playground with the kids. So, like, again, for that stuff, which I think it's fantastic. I don't get it. Like, again, I say I'm never going to get it, but they did it, and that's the world we live in today. And like, again, hats off to them on that. But as far as analyzing it as like a fight, it's almost like, the athletic.
All right, at Ray Longo MMA 9358 on social media. Ray Longo MMA on Twitter, but we appreciate Ray for the extended time today. And we're going to bounce on out of here in a few minutes, but I do want to get into some of the other UFC Fight Night highlights. And then don't forget, we'll be back with you coming up on Thursday with a full preview of UFC Fight Night. Vicente Luque and Rafael Dos Anjos. We will get Kenny's thoughts on the Sandhagen font business, but primarily a lot of what we spend our time on Thursday will be to look ahead with some predictions. Anik and Florian podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. So, all right, there's so many different things that happen on this fight night. I want to try to give some of these other wins the acknowledgement that they deserve. So Kennedy Nzechukwu has been plagued by slow starts before, Bri, and it plagued him again. He did land a big shot, but the one that Dustin Jacoby landed was bigger. Certainly, maybe you would have liked the referee to give Nzechukwu one more beat, but I didn't have a huge issue with the stoppage. But it was interesting. You had Nzechukwu who had won 3 in a row, Jacoby who had lost 2 in a row, and I spent some time with the General Saif Saud at the airport, and there's no denying the nature of this as a setback for Nzechukwu and a huge win for Jacoby moving forward.
Yeah, this is a big fight. It was hard for me to break down. I went Jacoby by dog. I thought it was going to go over 2.5. That was my big play because both these guys, like I said, Kennedy comes out a little slower and Jacoby kind of picks people apart. Kennedy came out fast, and that's what plagued him in this fight. He did come out fast, but he walked right into a right hand after landing a good shot. So it was like kind of one of those things where it's like, am I started too slow? Am I started too fast? I felt for the guy. I did think the stoppage was a hair early. I'm not going to cry about it or whatever. It's not going to be a big post. I thought you give Kennedy, who's been hurt before, you give him a little bit leeway, but again, the ref's in there. I'm not. So I thought Jacoby looked good. This was a big fight for 205. 205, my eyes are wide open. And these are guys are pretty exciting, similar styles, similar builds. So this is a big win for Jacoby here. I like what he said. He's like, I've been fighting behind. Let me fight ahead now. I think there's some good matchups in front of him for sure.
He wants that Ryan Spann fight. His teammate Anthony Lionheart Smith is getting it, but that would have been interesting, right? If he could have had that Ryan Spann fight. That's a big fight for Spann, getting that Anthony Smith rematch in a co-main event in Singapore. It's actually just a few weeks away. So there were a lot of decisions on this fight night. Some of them were very entertaining, right? Billy Quarantello over Damon Jackson. Great rally by Billy Q. DJ had his moments. Cody Durden is an absolute stud out of American Top Team, one of Alexandre Pantoja's primary training partners. 4 straight wins for him as he gets by a very game Jake White Kong Hadley. Jake Hadley's got that Jake Hadley strut. I don't know how I feel about it. It's pretty cool. It's definitely his. But there were a lot of decisions, a lot of big finishes. Carlston Harris with an unbelievable choke to get Jeremiah Wells to sleep. Wells had been perfect in the UFC. But Jason, I want to pick your brain if I could on Ludovic Klein. You absolutely love this guy. And he was fighting a guy who very well, Ignacio Bahamondes, has given you a relationship with Bilal Muhammad, who was in his corner. Nacho was game. I know Cruz loves watching Nacho perform, but Ludovic Klein proven to be the better man on this night at 155.
Well, Ludovic Klein's a guy that when I started getting deeper into the UFC about 3 years ago, he had a big win, and I sort of plucked myself a little bit, got a little bit on that bandwagon early, and I know he had to miss some fights, getting hurt here and there. I just love the physique for the weight class, and his boxing is crispy. He's really difficult, really everywhere. And to me, though, Bilal Muhammad had a lot of confidence in Nacho in this spot. He liked the matchup very much. To me, I think losses early on in the UFC in this realm, like for Ignacio, couldn't be more valuable. Losing in that fashion, I think, can actually expedite the championship run in a way, really sort of getting beat up. And it wasn't close. I know he looked, at the end pretty pleased, but it wasn't close. I 30-27 for me really all day long. And to me, hard for me not to focus on Nacho because he's a big part of sort of Bully's life, Bilal's life, and training him. But to me, it's a good spot. I think Nacho, I think Bilal would have liked to see Nacho fight some guys, even had he come out of this with a win. I don't think Bilal thinking necessarily ready for the rankings yet either. So I think it's good to have a setback at this stage. But look out for Ludovic Klein, man. I think he matches up really well with a lot of guys in that division.
All right, nicely done. At welterweight, Carlston Harris over Jeremiah Wells by technical submission, Anaconda. So, Bri, Jeremiah Wells, I don't know what it was like for you guys watching this athlete live. And he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He got choked to sleep here by the Guyana native Carlston Harris. And I feel so good for Harris, 36-year-old, getting the bonus. His coach is the man. But, dude, Jeremiah Wells' ability to cover distance quickly in the octagon, the athleticism. Oftentimes you'll hear me say that American football is exponentially more dangerous than mixed martial arts, and it is. But one of the big reasons is that these athletes on a football field can get going 30 miles per hour. And even when Jorge Masvidal knocks out Ben Askren with a knee, probably only going like 11 miles per hour. Right. So I think Jeremiah Wells can get going like 25 miles per hour in the octagon. I've never seen anybody throw their body faster across the octagon to where they want to get than this welterweight. And I know he lost the fight, but this Jeremiah Wells dude, what a freak athlete, man. Holy shit.
Super athlete. And he's not young. He's not a young dude. He's out there doing it at an advanced age. Advanced age for the sport. And he looked great. He was cruising to a victory. A buddy of mine picked up Harris at plus 800 in that third round. Harris wasn't giving up. Harris wasn't getting out of that. Dude's a dog in there. And then when he had the choke, it was kind of an awkward choke, and Jeremiah kind of had his arm right here. I look at my wife. I'm like, he's safe. He's safe. Next thing you know, he's sleeping, and my wife's like, "What's up? What is he saying?" Right. I'm like, "Hey, I don't got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, babe. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about." But I thought he was okay because the arm was there. And then next thing you know, he's sleeping. And then, Carlston Harris is saying, "Hey, I get that all the time in the gym. Guys think they're safe. They're not." This was a fight that I thought was pretty easy to read on the Jeremiah Wells side. I had a Jeremiah Wells ticket, was looking good. And Harris spoils the party, which I kind of love because that's fucking MMA. You know what I mean? I'm happy for the guy. He lost 2 rounds and he didn't give up. That's what it's all about.
Jason Herzog absolutely all over it. And I actually delayed the call, right? Because had I known right in the moment, right? I think I was sort of leaning into some of the analysis that we didn't necessarily think it was going to happen. Had I known right in the moment, I probably would have acknowledged that he had just submitted a Henzo Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But congratulations to Carlston Harris. And you're right, Jeremiah Wells also 36 and getting it done in a big way. All right. Last thing I want to get to on this UFC fight night, I want to get your collective opinion on this, and then I'll let you guys go. And I appreciate the extended time as you fellas sort of help me fill in for Ken Flo today. All right. So Jason Herzog, Mark Goddard, I believe they're the best 2 referees in mixed martial arts. There are other guys that I think are right there too. But we had the right referee for this main event as far as I'm concerned. And there are a few referees that I also hold in high regard that unequivocally would have at least warned Corey Sandhagen for more activity here and at some point would have stood this fight up. I don't think this fight should have stood up at all. Joe Rogan and I have long been aligned on this. We feel like a fighter has to get out themselves. Now, the rules don't necessarily dictate that. The referee has the power to stand this fight up. I guess I would just name a few, right? Not to name names, and this isn't necessarily me being overly critical. It's just my preference as a fan. But I think Mark Beltran certainly stands that fight up. Dan Murgliata, without a shadow of a doubt, whom I love as a human being, and I think is a good referee. I think he stands that fight up. I think Mark Smith stands that fight up, or at least offers up a warning. So, Petrie, I'll start with you on this. Yeah. You're as educated an MMA fan as I can find. Where do you stand on Herzog not really giving Sandhagen so much as a warning all night long and allowing the fight to play out the way it did?
I liked it. I mean, that's MMA. They're battling position on the ground. I mean, Rob Font was trying to secure guard. Corey was trying to pass guard. He did it a few times, landing strikes. They were scrambling on the ground. That's what you do. You got to make them work. The only time I'm ever really vocal about, okay, let's kind of maybe break them up is when they're in the clinch. If you're in the clinch against the cage, and the guy's clearly trying to stall, let's give him a clap. Let's give him a warning. And when you said that, the first ref that popped in my head was Mark Smith. He has no time for that shit. He is very quick to stand people up. I think he's a very good ref. He's fairly new, has been around. I mean, new to the UFC scene at least. He's been around. He hasn't been around as long as some of these other guys, but he doesn't play that shit. All right, let's get up. We're going. Let's go. And I think a crowd maybe plays in the factor of that. But I think Jason Herzog is the best referee, my favorite referee at least. And they're working. That's MMA. That's what it is. And they were working, and Corey's working, and I had no problem with it whatsoever. I think that is the sport, and I agree with you, Jay.
I think he hit on everything, and we talked about this in Nashville, John, and I said, would those guys, first of all, I don't necessarily agree with you, John. I don't think those guys necessarily stand it up because I don't think there was a single moment where it would have been the right moment to do that. But is it because of the crowd? Is that why one of the, and Petrie obviously brought it up, but I will say there were spots even in that championship with Pantoja and Moreno where I saw both guys. Now maybe Pantoja's on his back. That's not necessarily a spot where you're going to take him off his back when he's standing up, but I saw both guys sort of catching breath. There wasn't a moment where I saw where Corey wasn't trying to actively improve his position and Font wasn't desperately trying to get up. So to me, I think it would have been a huge mistake, but Herzog did go over to Sandhagen at the end of round 4 and I believe try to address something almost like, I don't know exactly what he said, but I think he was trying to address it. I believe Dom said maybe in multiple rounds, but yeah, right ref for the right situation. But I got to just say real quick about the bantamweight division, John. I believe Cody put in the chat that Corey did say it was torn and on his Instagram. So I believe it is torn. But Petrie, when you're talking about Cheeto, I mean, Merab, I saw Merab. He's getting close. He's healing up. So where are we going?
The reason I said that is because I don't know what Aljo is going to do, right? Is Aljo popping the 45 for sure? Because if Aljo sticks at 35, Merab's not fighting him, right? So that's what I mean. If Aljo stays, then it's probably going to be Cheeto. But Aljo needs a break too. So maybe the timeline adds up where they throw Corey in there. But yeah, I mean, for sure, if Aljo moves up, Merab's the guy. There's no one else. I maybe misspoke or whatever, but that's 100%. I love Merab. He's taking pictures of cowboy hats. I mean, the dude's a G. I wish I would have ran into him, but no, Merab's the guy. But I was just referring to really wasn't sure Aljo's situation because there's been. We're going up to 45 and doing Volkanovski and then maybe retiring. Maybe we're sitting at 35. It's in flux. I wasn't sure what the exact plan was.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But Sean O'Malley could very well beat Aljamain Sterling, even though he is not favored to do so. And part of the reason why Aljamain Sterling's title defense is being expedited is because Sean O'Malley fought Petr Yan a long time ago to become the number one contender. So we'll see what happens. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that the calendar works in favor of the healthiest guy, because if Corey Sandhagen is undergoing surgery this week, and that is the expectation, he's not fighting in December. And if Sean O'Malley knocks Aljamain Sterling out in round 1, probably going to headline our pay-per-view in December. Yeah. Call it speculation, if you will. All right, Brian Petrie on social media. You can find him at Brian Petrie MMA. For my twin bro, he's at Boston Anik. He'll be back with a new episode of Remember the Show on the Anik Florian Podcast YouTube channel this Thursday. And, of course, BP back with us coming up this Thursday for a second edition of the Anik Florian Podcast. We'll look at Luque and Dos Anjos. BP, Jay, appreciate you guys. Get the fuck out of here. Thank you, fellas.
Thanks, boys.
All right, that is going to do it for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching the Anik Florian Podcast. We'll also get some thoughts from Ken Flo on PFL 4. And some of the highlights, including a win for the man, the silverback Thad Gene. We'll also get Ken Flo's thoughts on Corey Sandhagen's big win over Rob Font. We'll get predictions on Vicente Luque, Rafael Dos Anjos, and the rest of the card coming up on August 12th. And then we will also later this week start to begin our 2-week preview on UFC 292 coming up August 19th in Boston, Massachusetts. And in closing, I just want to say, in reference to Raymond's line, that it is the people that make the people. Thank you to our listeners and viewers. Thank you so much, right? I've been broadcasting for 20 years. I've never received an award. I don't care to receive one, but this nomination for the Anik Florian Podcast, I feel like is one of the biggest accomplishments of my entire broadcasting career, because we built this thing from scratch and we have just tried to provide free MMA content to fans for the better part of a decade. And so whomever makes up this panel to acknowledge our show, I'm just forever in gratitude to you people. Let's get out the vote. Let's see if we can at least move the needle a little bit. And thanks to everybody for supporting and watching the show. Tell your friends, subscribe to the DraftKings YouTube channel. And if you like our videos, those will be the ones that primarily populate. Thank you to everybody for checking out the Anik and Florian podcast presented by DraftKings. Thanks to Brian Petrie, Jason Anik, Ray Longo joining us today, our capable producer, Cody Merrow, as well. And we'll be back with you folks in about 72 hours or so with a complete preview of the Fight Night on Deck coming up this weekend back at the Apex. Thank you all for listening, for watching. I'm Jon Anik. We'll talk to you Thursday. Until then, yo later.